Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hema Ranawaka, session compeer. I would straightforwardly declare open the session on safeguarding gender rights and combating gender-based violence, which is one of the parallel session of ReproSex 2024. 6 presentations are on the schedule to be presented by researchers from Sri Lanka as well as India and Bangladesh. On behalf of the Family Planning Association of Sri Lanka, I warmly welcome two co-chairs, 6 presenters and the audience to the session. Now I would like to introduce the co-chairs. Dr. Lakshman Senanayaka is a medical specialist in sexual and reproductive health. His extensive background encompasses clinical practice, advocacy, and policy development in the realm of family planning and sexual and reproductive health. Dr. Senanayaka is well known for promoting reproductive health rights and contributing to national health initiatives in Sri Lanka. Professor Anuruddhi Edirisinghe is the Cadre Chair and Senior Professor of Forensic Medicine at the University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. She is the first female to hold a forensic Cadre Chair post at a national university in Sri Lanka. She is an expert in research, postgraduate and undergraduate teaching, forensic medicine, women and child care, and prevention of child abuse and gender-based violence. Professor Anuruddhi has made numerous contributions in her areas of expertise, such as journal publications, books, presentations, etc. And the list goes on and is exhaustive. She is currently the president of the International Association of Clinical Forensic Medicine. So I invite the two co-chairs to conduct the session.
Thank you very much, Hema, for the kind introductions. Without any delay, we will start the proceedings. Today, according to the sheet that we are given, the first presentation is from Dr. Arpita Das, and she will be presenting on the title, Effectiveness of Survivor-Centered Multi-Pronged Approach for Addressing Sexual and Gender-Based Violence in Bhutan. If I say a very small introduction of Dr. Das. She is a senior performance, learning and impact advisor at the International Planned Parenthood Federation South Asia Regional Office, a trained demographer with a doctorate in population studies from IIPS Mumbai, and she brings over a decade of experience in research, monitoring and evaluation, specializing in SRHR, gender strategy, adolescent and clinical health, abortion, family planning. Dr. Arpita is also a recipient of Prof. J.R. Reilly Gold Medal for Best at IIPS. So it's over to Dr. Das. You have 10 minutes for the presentation, and by 8 minutes I will raise my hand, and because I have to manage this session, so we'll start.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much everyone to join this session. Quickly, I'm moving towards my presentation. So it is, we did one study that is called Proof of Concept Study. Our member associations in Bhutan called Renew, they have done the interventions, that is that whole 360-degree approach for the, survivor-centered approach. And we, after intervention, we did that evaluation of that approach. So can I request to pull my presentation on? So as I mentioned that we did that proof of concept study, that is the complete evaluation to know about that effectiveness of survivor-centered multi-pronged approach for addressing sexual and gender-based violence in Bhutan. So in an earlier session in that plenary session, we talked about that survivor-centered approach, and I want to unpack more what we have done. So I would like to, introduce my co-authors, that, Dr. Sering and Dr. Meenakshi, they are from Bhutan. They are part of the Renew team and part of the intervention. And Ashita and Dr. Rajiv, they are from Population Council India. So they are our knowledge partner, and this is the third party evaluation, independent evaluation of that program. With this, I am starting my presentation. So before coming to the objective, I want to highlight that, the country context. We know Bhutan is a very peaceful, carbon negative country, but the gender-based violence, sexual and gender-based violence is so high in Bhutan. And during COVID, that has been, the prevalence actually increased a lot, more than 50%. Our member association, Renew, the full name is Respect, Educate, Nurture and Empower Women. They actually working in this field for so long years, but this, particular project we adopted, that is that whole 360-degree approach and focused on that survivor centered. We included different, stakeholders into that intervention, and I will, unpack one by one. So the first thing is that why we did that study, because it's a, after 3 years of interventions, we thought that we need to know that how intervention is effective or not. That's the purpose, and to, see that contribution of that selected activities that we have done under this project, for that, improvement, not only in one direction, but it's a whole comprehensive survivor centered intervention, and as well as creating an enabling ecosystem to address that SGBV. Another thing is that how, if we are addressing SGBV, how we are empowering that survivor, the victims to survivors, in that manner, that livelihood, aspect we have added into this intervention. So going with that, I'm just going to highlight, methodology section. So we did that, it is a completely qualitative study, not quantitative. We did that in-depth interviews with different stakeholders. We have done the interviews with the survivors, those aged between, young and the elder cohort, that 18 to 24 and that more than 25. We have included the faith-based leaders here because their role in the community is very important. If we miss to include them in our intervention, so that we miss one arm. So that's why that they are very much included in that, and we interviewed them. So total 30 interviews we have done with the women SGBV survivors. We interviewed 20 faith-based leaders, and also we have interviewed the program managers because they are the integral part of that intervention. So, as you know that the whole IRB thing we have done, and those who gave consent to part of this evaluation, they are only considered, and total 58 we called narrative interviews, the detailed interview things, and we prepared some vignette as well to discuss about that, how we can get that enrich qualitative data, because it's very difficult to get quality, interviews and things rather than quantity part. So we have, after, collection and everything, we did that, analysis, that is that very much inductive and deductive approach to identify the themes and sub-themes and the quotes. Moving quickly to the result part, because it is very important. And this study, first thing we did that, to know about that country context and the reasons behind that, this increased prevalence of violence. And the study revealed that lack of awareness among women regarding their right, particularly on SRHR, before they come to Renew for any help, right? So when we are talking about that, their lack of knowledge, we also acknowledge the part of that, very much justified. Violence is very much justified. So we always know that violence report is under-reporting part. Within, when we are asking about that question about knowledge and awareness, it is very much normal violence in the society. Traditional gender roles, as I mentioned, and the social norms, were found often dictate the roles and responsibilities when we are talking about that, disparities or the sexual and gender-based violence. When we talked with the faith-based leaders, they mentioned that, the child marriage is so much prevalent, and if a child got married instead they don't have that autonomy or, say voice in that house, and they face the violence more as compared to the elder counterpart. Alcoholism and extramarital affairs of husbands or partners were cited as the most common triggers of violence, highlighting that complex inquiry of personal and social factors contributed to their behavior. So this study underscored the significant impact of Renew's program, where we mentioned about that 360-degree approach. I'm coming later, with different stakeholders, not only with the survivors, but also that, service provider, faith-based leaders, as well as they creating action group in the community to identify and screen those, violence survivors from the community. So after, having all that regular kind of, themes and sub-themes, we did that contribution analysis of that particular intervention. As I mentioned, this evaluation is proof of concept study, that the concept is that whole intervention and how this intervention is effective. If we can mention that, different testimonies from the survivors, they highlighted that profound impact of Renew's program on their lives, because Renew not only screened them, they gave that, first line support, referral pathways, not only for that, health, but as well as that medical legal, advice, and they provide that livelihood opportunities. That's why they mentioned that, by prioritizing their SRHR, this intervention promotes women's autonomy and agency and reproductive choices. As a part of that broader objective of this study, that, and the intervention, that is the aim to have that reintegrate those survivors into the society. So if we are not empowering them in a way, so it's very difficult. They might face the same problem again when they return back from the shelter home. By acquiring new skills and vocational training. So vocational training to the women, that is important, and faith-based leaders also highlighted that importance of engaging more religious leaders in different parts of the country, so that they can, orient to the crowd in the society about that, negative effect of gender-based violence. So in conclusion, I must say that study emphasized that significant impact of Renew's intervention in supporting to the SGBV survivors through a comprehensive and holistic approach, starting from, screening, first line support, providing SRHR services, as well as that livelihood opportunities. If I may, just use one quotation that provided by the Happy Home managers. Happy Home is the shelter home for the survivors. That trainings given to the women have brought positive feedback and impact to them, because I have witnessed many successful stories of women clients. When they return back from the shelter home, they opened their own small scale industries, like for the mushroom cultivations or tailoring, which actually empowered them economically. The violence prevalence has gone down in the home, because they have that economic independence and say in their house. So what are the recommendations? I'm just closing quickly, because the recommendation is that this approach or the intervention has very much positive impact and scope for that scale up. So that one thing they mentioned about that SBCC, that social and behavior change communication, could be added, and we can build one kind of advocates among the survivors, so that they can reach out to their peers and in the community. So these are the broad recommendations. Due to time, I'm closing my sessions, but happy to discuss over tea break or something if you would like to know about this interventions and that evaluation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Das, for sticking to your time. We will be giving the audience time after everybody presents from the paper 1 to the paper 5. So make your questions ready. We will be getting the authors to discuss further, right?
The next presentation is by Dr. Kanthi Hettigoda. Dr. Kanthi Hettigoda is a senior lecturer in psychology and a chartered clinical psychologist, registered with the Sri Lanka Medical Council and British Psychological Society. She holds a PhD in military health psychology from University of Hull and an MPhil in clinical psychology from the University of Colombo. Additionally, she has an MSc in organizational management and a bachelor's degree in psychology from University of Peradenium. Dr. Hettigoda currently teaches at the University of Peradenium. She is also the president of Sri Lanka Psychological Association and serves on national mental health committees. The kind of person that I like to have as a friend for emotional support.
Thank you,
He will
Professor.
talk on exploring the effectiveness of an awareness video to change attitudes and knowledge about LGBTQ community among undergraduates in Sri Lanka. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Professor. Good afternoon, everyone. Directly moving to our topic, we all know that whether we like or not, the LGBT, those who identify themselves as part of LGBT community is increasing day by day everywhere. The university is just a cross section of that. So we have noticed that the students who identify themselves as part of LGBT community, they do not engage much in their academics and they isolate, self-exclude themselves from a lot of activities and do not actually enjoy the university life because of these issues at the university they perceive, and sometimes it actually happen. They have some kind of stigma towards them. So we wanted to explore how we can change the attitudes of the other counterparts, other students in the university about this LGBT community. And we know there are lots of misconceptions and a lot of misunderstanding about this community. That is one reason to maintain the stigma against this community. So to do that, this my Miss Krishanti Ranasinghe is my student who actually plant, and I just put water and fertilize that attitude, that idea. So I'm presenting on behalf of her as a supervisor. So the main objectives were investigate undergraduate students' knowledge and attitude about the LGBT community. So we wanted to see how they perceive this, how they look at this component or look at these people is like main start of our society now. And secondly, we wanted to know how we can use awareness programs in terms of, in this particular research, we used a video, can actually change these negative attitudes. That were the two main objectives. The methodology as a research design was quasi, and we went on we combined both qualitative and quantitative. The main part is quantitative, but we include the qualitative part as well. Variables were like awareness tool on LGBTQ community, the video we are going to talk about, and we looked at the attitude and knowledge change. And the sample for the first phase, actually for the qualitative half, we interviewed as a focus group discussion, we interviewed 5 LGBTQ students who volunteered to take part in interview, and we asked what are the issues they are facing in the university community, and based on their actually ideas and their concerns, then we developed actually small questionnaire to distribute among the other students to see how they perceive this. And then second phase was second and third was we delivered, actually we assessed their attitude, 150 undergraduates, how is their attitude and their knowledge about LGBTQ community. And then we actually the sample was 20 to 30 both genders, government universities from all demographic categories, convenience sampling. Data collection method, actually we had 5 phases here. After the interview, we prepared the questionnaire, then we pre-tested the questionnaire, and we assessed their attitude using this questionnaire actually on a scale, and then we gave this 10-minute long video. We prepared the video based on scientific knowledge on this, and to change the attitude and the knowledge and some part of practices also. The video was given to them, and after 2 weeks, after giving the video, after 2 weeks, we reassessed, assessed their attitudes and the knowledge about LGBTQ community. So, and as the last step, we looked at the individuals, the undergraduates who scored high, who had shown some increase in their attitude towards positive way, and those who have scored very low still, right? The two ends, we identified 10 individuals who scored high and who scored low in this scale even after the intervention, and we had another round of interviews with them, what made them to change or not to change, right? So those are the 5 steps, and the link here is is the, so you can see the link to the video. We can share if you want. It is in Sinhala. Actually, we don't have Sinhala material in Sri Lanka. That's why we wanted to do it in Sinhala. So this is the results. So quantitative data results actually mean attitude score was lower than knowledge at the pre-test level, and later it increased statistically, but comparatively knowledge it was lower. Where the knowledge actually, again the pre-test knowledge was low, but after the intervention the knowledge increased high, and it was significantly high and much more than attitude. So with this we use, you can see the statistic. I don't want to go through the statistic because you can read it here. So there was a significant change in attitude and knowledge both after the intervention. Then after the qualitative data results, actually the first line talk about the issues these LGBTQ community faced. After the presentation or the video, they said they have limited knowledge about this. They really appreciate this video because most of the undergraduates said this is the first time they got to know about what is it scientific manner, right? So they said this increased their knowledge a lot. They accepted it. But they said some of the students who scored low in attitude change, they said yes, we know this is a fact, but we have a very strong, deeply rooted attitude that this is wrong in the society. So they say it will take some time for us to change our attitude, but we know now we shouldn't discriminate these colleagues or counterparts who are having this, because the video talked about all the biological scientific background about LGBTQ community and what we mean by homosexuality, what we mean by bisexual, and what is transgender. They got to know everything. Actually our codes like verbatims have a lot of they praise us for giving this knowledge to them, and they are willing to change their attitude, but it takes time. They said it's very difficult to change it, right? They said this video was very effective, and we have to consider the culture also. They said yes, whenever we take even to the university community, we have to consider the cultural context. So these are some of the quotations in Sinhala, right? Those who speak Sinhala would understand, but we can share the English translation, right? This is the summary of our results, and if we talk about the limitations, we know this 10-minute video is not that much effective, but still it has worked. So we are planning to use this video for different education programs in the university level. Actually we showed them in the orientation program also, and we are distributing this video whenever possible. We are planning to translate it to Tamil and English also. We conclude this study saying that we can change attitude using these kind of awareness, but we can change knowledge, but to change attitude we need to take long-term actions, long-term programs, and empowering the LGBT community as well. And this is very complex. Still we all are like Asians, we agree, we know as scientists this is not something something bad, but still there are some concerns, right? So that is that. So we recommend future researchers to take these concerns into consideration and design their programs to minimize these limitations and maximize the effectiveness, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you for the timely presentation. And let's move to the third presentation. That's AKM Anizuman. I think I have pronounced it to a certain extent. He would be talking about breaking the silence, revealing gender-based violence among Hijra and the transgender communities in Bangladesh. Over to you, Mr. Anizuman. Duman is a program manager at Bandhu Social Welfare Society, where he leads health initiative with a focus on SRHR. With the extensive experience, he has held key roles in both national and international organizations, gaining hands-on expertise in gender justice, SRHR, GPV, and various other areas. He holds a diploma in volunteer management from the Asia Pacific School of Volunteer Management in Australia and completed the Global Tobacco Leadership Program at Johns Hopkins Bloomsburg School of Public Health. Anizuman also holds a postgraduate degree in physics from Chittagong University. So from physics to gender-based violence, I'm very impressed to listen to you, Mr. Azuman.
Thank you so much. This is A.K. Manisujaman, already introduced. I'm working with Bondhu Social Welfare Society in Bangladesh. Bondhu Social Welfare Society actually working with the gender diverse population and leading organization in the Bangladesh. Gender diverse population means LGBTQI. We are a religious and country context. We actually use the gender diverse population. Already mentioned that the Hijra and transgender population. Hijra is the basically trans woman, and Hijra has a good culture and they have their identity, but they are the include in the gender diverse population as well as the LGBTQI population. So I will go directly to my presentation. This is the breaking the silence of the gender-based violence against the Hijra and transgender community. And the author, I'm Anisuzjaman, as well as Mr. Saleh Ahmed. Here, he is the executive director of Bondhu Social Welfare Society. He also guided prison, and also we have done this study. Actually, this is not a hypothetical study, and this is the action research-based study because we are working on that. And this is not a already mentioned that this is not a hypothetical activities and study. So that this study actually analyzed the reported gender-based violence in cases which we have documented in every year. And as well as why we are documenting this report, because we want to know the pattern of the gender-based violence as well as the responsive program, and also properly response for this gender-based violence as well as advocacy for the gender-based violence. Methodology, we have two mixed methods we have done. We have analyzed the different case studies as well as quantitative data we have collected from our legal unit called INALAP. INALAP actually Bondhu Social Welfare Society is providing the legal service to the gender diverse community through the INALAP unit. And INALAP unit actually over the year collected different right violation cases among the gender diverse population and different kind of right violation including the gender based violation. From that perspective, we have collected the data. So that and the result, and we have seen that in 2023, Bondhu Social Welfare Society documented 208 right violation cases among the gender diverse community in Bangladesh. This is the reported and self-reported case and documented cases which are documented by the INALAP unit of Bondhu Social Welfare Society. Among them, we have seen that 40% right violation cases are actually for gender-based violation among the gender diverse population. Among the 83 cases, 67 cases were successfully resolved through the mediation, utilizing the traditional culture and traditional support system of Hijra community and transgender community. And as well as gender-based violation incident regards discrimination, we have seen that different kind of gender-based violation occurs: discrimination, harassment, domestic violence, property dispute, assault, and online harassment. This kind of violation actually happened with the gender diverse population and Hijra and transgender community. And also social stigma lead the discrimination and economic marginalization, where the identified as a key factor for the vulnerability of gender diverse population. Bondhu has been working directly with the active working for gender-based violation for prevention as well as awareness campaign, capacity development of the LGBTQI population and transgender population, and also response program for referral through the referral of the victim, and establish the referral mechanism as well as those are working in Bangladesh for the gender-based violence. And a positive shift was observed that slightly reduced the GBV cases from 44 to in 2022 there was a 44% gender-based violence among LGBTQI community. In 2023 we have seen it's 40%. It's very low, but it's reducing. The main things is that we need to actually emphasize on the awareness program, response program, as well as the prevention program. And we have concluded that the gender-based violence against the Hijra and transgender population in Bangladesh is multifactorial and also involving different kind of stigma, discrimination, and harassment and violence. And urgent need the targeted intervention, because there is no targeted intervention among the gender diverse community people especially for gender-based violence. Effort for gender-based violence must be comprehensive, covering both prevention and response strategies. And from our perspective, we have already mentioned that we are not providing only awareness program. Also, from this perspective, we are collecting the data and we are documenting the data and cases, and so far, and as well as we are promoting and responding responding to the respective cases. So that we have seen that the legal framework and enforcement of protection of Hijra community and transgender community individual for gender-based violence, and advocate the policy reform like Transgender Protection Act and also anti-discriminatory law for safeguarding them, and also expand the access to training the support system, because support system is not those are providing support to the gender-based violence, but they are not actually well acquainted and they are not actually well known about the gender diverse communities need, and so that they are need to sensitize about these community people and launch the awareness campaign and challenge the stigma and discrimination. Ensure the government policies on LGBTQI community, because Hijra are recognized by the Bangladesh government, but other community people among the LGBTQI population, they are not recognized. They are actually facing different kind of harassment and violence in the country, and they are from the root level to the policy level also. So that policy, it would be a good initiative to policy reform and recognition of the other LGBTQI community person. That's all.
Thank you. You have saved time also. So let's move to the next one.
Dr. Chanika Dilhani. Chanika Dilhani is a psychology graduate from the University of Peradeniya and holds a master's degree in social work from the National Institute of Social Development, completed in 2022. She currently serves as a probationary lecturer in the Department of Psychology and Counseling at the Open University of Sri Lanka. Previously, she held positions as a temporary lecturer at both the University of Peradeniya and the Open University. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, all of you. During the COVID-19 pandemic period, there are a number of intimate partner violence cases have been increased throughout the world, in Sri Lanka, Serena as well. Many research have been done to identify the prevalence rate and the attitudes regarding gender-based violence, but very less amount of research articles and research concern about the risk factors as well as the protective factors. So my research attempts to understand what are the protective factors that can have the ability to safeguard intimate partner violence against their husbands among married women in Sri Lanka. Actually, it's a case study in Kalatara district. So I'm Chanika Dilhani from the Department of Psychology and Counseling. So the basic insight provided by Professor Indralda Silva, the keynote speaker of the session. As I described earlier, many research have been focused on the risk factors as well as to discuss the ratio and the prevalence rate and so on. So moved from these demographic as well as the prevalent factor, this research is a qualitative study actually, but in depth try to understand what are the protective factors that enhance and safeguard married women from intimate partner violence. So my main objectives were to describe about the protective factors that safeguard married women not only within the COVID-19 pandemic period but also pre-COVID pandemic era, as well as I want to just check whether and analyze what are the factors that remain effective both within the COVID-19 pandemic period as well as the pre-pandemic era. What are the effective factors that remain both eras, as well as the finally I want to just split them out into different domains. Domains in here means I just take the theoretical from the Bronfenbrenner ecological framework. So intimate partner violence is actually complex scenario which includes number of factors, not only personal factors, not only interpersonal factors, but it may includes number of community related factors, social factors, policy factors and so on. So it's a very complex process. I just want to check and I just want to sort these factors into this different level. So it, as I mentioned earlier, it was a qualitative research, and at the very initial level, I conducted several key informant interviews to have a very good insight regarding this topic. And it contains a senior lecturer in psychology, and she is a good researcher in intimate partner violence, and medical practitioner at the Mitrupias, and the inspector of child and women bureau, the counseling officers, as well as the women development officer, and the two public health midwives who are working in the community level, and they have the good insight regarding what are the community based practices in Sri Lankan community. The sampling method is a convenient sampling. As I mentioned earlier, this study is done within the Kaltar district context. This study is actually done within the COVID-19 pandemic period. So the convenient sampling, since it's qualitative study as well, the convenient sampling facilitated to get in-depth data. The age category is 18 to 55 age category, and married women, the sample consisted with the married women who successfully mitigate intimate partner violence in typical times, including the COVID-19 pandemic period. And the analysis done by the thematic analysis. This is the output of the thematic analysis. I could find out and evaluate main three themes: personal and economic well-being and social skill competency, and the final is constructive communication strategies. So each and every themes, the very first one, personal and economic well-being, it consists with subcodes including positive development experiences, including the childhood positive experiences, and economic stability, having very good sound economic source in the family, both male partner and the female partner, and the higher education level. Under the social skill competency, I could found different sub-themes like problem solving skills and how the adaptability between couples and cooperation, how the boundaries can be set and how it will be effectively impact on the as a protective factors. For example, clearly setting boundaries between work and home settings, as well as the social life and the family life as well. So the final one is the constructive communication strategies. So under that, reciprocal communication and very constructive dialogue between couples, and the empathy as well as the openness. When I'm looking forward toward the conclusion, so as I mentioned earlier, under these three themes, there are a number of protective factors can be identified as to safeguard females their competency to face intimate partner violence. And again is, I have observed that economic stability, having a permanent source of income, actually social skill competency, constructive communication skills were remained effective not only within the COVID-19 pandemic period but also before the pandemic period. And the ability, cooperation and empathy were significant protective factors against intimate partner violence and strong predictor for marital well-being as well. Constructive communication strategies including looking at the occasional critical remarks, forgiving hurtful behavior, avoiding expressions of blame, hostility and contempt strengthened their role during the lockdown period. So those factors facilitate their marital well-being while working them as a protective factors. And finally, the women's higher educational level and economic stability actually act as a protective factors, but their effectiveness is influenced by the relative economic positions of husband and their educational level. So my take-home assignment is, so we need to identify very long-term resilience factors rather than addressing the scenario and the issues at the moment itself, and enhance social and communication skills. So rather than just identify individual factors, it's always better to identify the relationship factors as well. And the next one is develop holistic intimate partner violence preventive programs and support financial stability, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic period. There are a number of issues related to the economic stability within many families that will lead to the intimate partner violence. So supportive financial stability as a precautions of any emergency would be actually ideal. Final one is the crisis preparedness and response. Those are my take-home assignments from this research. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dilhani. I'm inviting the next person to present in this panel, that is Niranjala Sumatipala, and her title is Help Seeking Behavior of Women Facing Sexual Violence by Intimate Partners in Sri Lanka. If I say a little bit about Ms. Niranjala Sumatipala, is a lecturer in the Department of Demography at the Faculty of Arts, University of Colombo. She specializes in demographic analysis with a focus on migration, mortality, morbidity, and sexual and reproductive health. With expertise in applied demography and statistical methodologies, she aims to provide insight that support public policy, healthcare, and social services, contributing to a deeper understanding of population dynamics and public health. We are delighted to listen to you, Ms. Sumitipala.
Thank you for the nice introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I will be presenting my research topic on help-seeking behavior of women facing sexual violence by intimate partners in Sri Lanka. This presentation aims to explore who seek helps and the sources of support and the characteristics influencing these help-seeking behaviors. So my co-author is here, Dr. Kumudika Boyagoda. She is my co-author of this study. The objective of our study to examine and provide a descriptive analysis as to who among the victims of sexual violence seek help and who does not, and also help is sought from which type of person or institutions, organization it is sought, and analyze the association between selected characteristics of women and help-seeking behavior. So, moving to the next part of my presentation, methodology. Our study is based on secondary data using Women's Wellbeing Survey 2019 conducted by Department of Census and Statistics. From the total sample, in this study, there were 2,100 ever partnered women aged 15 years and above. Among them, 148 women reported they are facing sexual violence in their lifetime. And also, this study is an analysis of these 148 women. Data was analyzed by using SPSS software, univariate and bivariate analysis for the descriptive examination. And also in here, we run some chi-square statistics to find some relationship between characteristics and their help-seeking behavior. So the results, first I would like to talk about the characteristics of responders. What are the characteristics of responders? As our study, especially we looked at the demographic and socio-economic characteristics. The data provides, our sample size is 148. As you see, the majority's victims' education level was up to GCE ordinary level. By looking at this data, we can, as I think, education level is most important characteristic because education level is influence of awarenesses, self-employment and access to resources that might affect help-seeking behavior. So, experience intimate partner violence is not confined to women with limited education or higher education. Rather than it pervasive issue then spans all education levels. Moving to the next part of my presentation, I would like to talk about their main daily activity of respondents. As you can see, the most of respondents were doing household activities and engaging economic activity. Majority doing household activities. We can identify here the women, those who are victims for the sexual violence, majority were doing household activities. Percentage of women who shared their experience with someone. This is very important one because we want to know their behavior pattern. If they get they share their experience with someone. As you see, you can see here, majority of women, 79.7% have shared their experience, especially their sexual violence experience with someone. Here I would like to talk about source of support, whom women inform about intimate partner violence. As you can see, the most of women shared their experience and asked some support from their family members. You can see here parents and second majority siblings. In some critical situations, especially those who are victims for the sexual violence, they trust their family members. They seek help and they share their experience from their family members. So this is very good and this is very important point in our research. Help-seeking behavior among women facing intimate partner violence. This is a very good one because we want to know they sought help or they not sought help. As you can see here, the majority of women who faced sexual violence not sought help. This is the problem here because sometimes they shared their experience with someone. As you can see, the majority of women shared their experience with someone but they did not get any help from someone. Source of support. There are two major sources of support, informal and formal. As you can see here, as I previously mentioned, they shared their experience with their family members that call informal. When move to the formal sectors, we can see here most of women get support from informal sector police. The percentage 67.71. They got the support from police to they inform their situation to police. Especially women seek help for the IPV. Key reasons for seeking help among women experience IPV. Key reasons why they sought help. As you can see, most of women seek help because they could not endure anymore this situation. Sometimes it not be their first time, their second time, so several times they victim for this situation. So they can't tolerate this more. They decided to get some help from someone. You can see the majority seeking help because of they could not endure anymore. So there are some other reasons. They saw their children are suffering from that. They seeking some help. And key reasons for not seeking help among why they are not seeking help. You can see majority of women they not get some help because bring bad name to the family. They are always thinking about their family name. So they always hide this situation because they think that if they inform the situation, it will be bad name for their family. And this also a very important part. Preferred source of support among women facing intimate partner violence. What their preference? As you can see, the majority respondents said about their preference. No one mentioned. They didn't mention any name or any source, formal or informal. The majority mentioned they didn't like to share this situation. This is, I think, policymakers should address this. And also, this is a chi-square analysis of our characteristics of women and seeking help. As you can see, I'm not going to explain this statistical method, but the summary, the help seeking and level of education, help seeking and main daily activity, and help seeking and age of the sexual violence women and employability. There is no significant relationship between their help seeking and these kind of characteristics. These are the conclusion. Time is over, but I conclude this. These are the conclusion and recommendations. So recommendations: educate in informal sectors, develop informal sources and strengthen informal network, and empower women as a whole, raise awareness at the community level. These are the references of my study. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you very much. I think we were supposed to finish this session at 3 o'clock and we are going on borrowed time. We will certainly go ahead with the last presentation. Dr. Nalaka Kulatunga. Dr. Kulatunga holds an MBBS, a postgraduate diploma and an MD in venereology from the University of Colombo and currently serves as a senior registrar in venereology. With extensive experience in primary health care, Dr. Kulatunga focuses on research and care provision for marginalized groups, including LGBTQ communities, with primary research areas in STI treatment, HIV, and LGBTQ health. Actively engaged in clinical audits, sexual health promotion, and electronic patient data management. Dr. Kulatunga is dedicated to advancing inclusive sexual health care and education. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. Good afternoon to everyone. Let me present our study finding, decoding perspectives, insight of government medical officers in Sri Lanka on homosexuality, a cross-sectional analysis. I'm Nalaka Kulatunga and my supervisor is Dr. Ariyaratna Manatunga. As we all know, human gender and sexuality is falls into a wider spectrum and it's not static and it's not binary. And certain so-called gender minority people do have their own set of sexual health needs in addition to the other common needs. Healthcare providers' attitude and knowledge will invariably affect the healthcare delivery, and understanding these will promote more inclusive healthcare environment to all. So with this background, we developed this research to identify the knowledge on homosexuality among doctors employed under the Ministry of Health, Sri Lanka. This is a descriptive cross-sectional study, and all the medical officers who were employed during the time period of the study was included, except who has not given email addresses and as well as intern house officers, because those data are not in that the ministry. So we have employed the simple random sampling.
The calculated sample size was 384 with a modest response rate of 51.1%. And we have used the sex education knowledge about homosexuality questionnaire or SCKHQ without any alterations to gather the data. And it is an online data questionnaire, and we use the Google Forms to anonymously collect the responses. So most of the respondents belongs to the age category between 35 to 44. And as you can see here, male and female are more or less in equal representation. But interestingly, 2.3% of the responding doctors identified themselves as gender non-binary. And this is how the scores have been distributed. It is more or less like a normal distribution curve. The statistical analysis shows a mean score of 13.5 and also a narrow confidence interval. And after reviewing the past studies as well as getting the expert opinion, it is decided to consider the people who have scored more than 50% to have a better knowledge on homosexuality. So as you can see here, most of the respondents, about 64%, can be considered as having poor knowledge on homosexuality. Analyzing further, in this questionnaire, it has a 32 stems, true or false stems, and of that, 6 stems receives less than 20% correct answers. And one interesting finding is the same study, same type of the questionnaire used and study done in India had recorded the same 6 stems having lowest responses. On the other hand, only 2 stems had recorded more than 80% correct answers. I want to highlight this because these kind of findings can be maybe due to the prevailing myths within the society. They can foster more misconception within the society. And mind you, we are doing this on medical doctors. Statistical analysis shows that there is a statistically significant association with exposure to the LGBT patients. It's a p-value of 0.007, and so do with the having LGBTIQ relatives or friends. That's also there's a better knowledge when they have either relatives or past exposure to the patients. Though statistically not significant, male doctors had a higher average compared to the females. Then gender non-binary doctors scored higher than the gender binary doctors. Also, young doctors had a higher average again, and certain ethnicity had higher average than others. And also the doctors who are single had a higher average, and also doctors who have not following any religion had a higher average. Another addition was that they were living in a Western country, and also the doctors who have schooled in Colombo is the more urbanized area in the country, had a better average. Another part of the study was we inquired whether they have ever had a formal training on LGBTIQ. The doctors who had LGBT training in the past had a narrow discrepancy between the good and bad. As you can see here, about 51% had a poor knowledge. But in contrast to that one, the doctors who never had that one, 66% had poor knowledge. Overall, this reflects a poor knowledge about homosexuality among doctors. In fact, the personal and professional exposure may enhance the understanding because both are statistically significantly associated with good knowledge. Male gender, young age, not following any religion, and past residence in Western country also positively associated with, though it is not statistically significant. Let me tell you a little bit about the limitations as well. We choose this study design because it's cost effective. Low response rate is a concern, maybe due to unfamiliarity with the online questionnaires. As you can see, most of the old age group doctors was not responded. Again, the reservation about the topic. Some may have special reservation and they didn't respond. But nevertheless, confidence interval is narrow, as well as the post-hoc analysis done on this study give a very high statistical power. So findings are representative to some extent. And selection bias and self-reporting issues can be there. A little bit about the other studies done in the region. I could find only 2 studies done in Sri Lanka in the same period where I was done the study. Both studies, the one is on doctors and one is on the medical students. Both had a better knowledge on homosexuality compared to our study. But one Indian study is more or less similar to our one, showed that doctors have poor knowledge on homosexuality. And there is one interesting study done in Switzerland. It is an interventional study. It shows that receiving interventions improve the knowledge of doctors. I think we need to give more familiarity within our medical education, not only the medical education, even in the school education on this gender diversity. Technical and formal training on education may improve the clinician's knowledge and will also foster more increased responsiveness of doctors towards these kind of communities, as well as reduce discrimination and also enhance confidence in providing care to these LGBTI individuals. So these are my references. Thank you.
And it's time for the discussion, and the coordinator informed, because we started late, we have 3:30 to conclude the session. So I will be inviting one after the other. So we are almost 3:10, each person about 6 or 7 minutes if we go, we can conclude, give opportunity to each paper. So I would invite the first paper, Dr. Arpita Das, to come to the podium, and her paper is on effectiveness of survivor-centered multi-pronged approach for addressing sexual and gender-based violence in Bhutan. Anyone having questions, comment, the paper is open to the public.
Thank you so much, Dr. Noor. It's a very good question because we took that purposive sampling, those who involved in the interventions, to know about that this intervention was effective from their lens. But as you have mentioned that if we could do kind of case control kind of thing, those who are involved and those who are not, maybe in the scale up phase, we could do that. And as we have mentioned that it's very limited to one geography, and that scale up options could be, more to other geography in other faith-based leaders, those who are not involved, to get their perspectives as compared to those who are involved in that. But we involved the faith-based leaders to know about that, how we can improve our interventions and reach to the unreached at that, different communities and different geographies. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Orpita. It's a wonderful study, and I'm really, really impressed with the way you did the qualitative data analysis. I really like that. You did the thematic analysis, and I can imagine how difficult it is sometimes, and sometimes it's frustrating as well. But you summarized in a very well manner. I just wanted to know that as it was an intervention study, we all know that intervention study is always having much more challenges rather than other type of studies. As it was different particular geographical situation. So can you please share with us for our learning what kind of challenges you have faced when you have implemented the intervention study in Bhutan? By the way, I'm Dr. Fariha from Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fariha. As you have mentioned, we faced lot of challenges. Actually, when we reached to the survivors, they hesitate to participate in that study, to come in that place and sharing their knowledge, because now they overcome that situation, or else they were, placed at the shelter home. They were hesitating to share their stories. It's not, easy to get the verbatims or the in-depth, things from them. But, and we actually did kind of rapport sessions before actually onset of that particular, in-depth interviews. So that 1 or 2 weeks, that rapport session, so that we can, very much familiar with them, so that they can explain their story. It's very difficult to explain. And as I mentioned, we use the vignette kind of, story to share another women's perspective, and then they opened up and, shared their stories. But it's very challenging to get all those things. And, due to time, but if we can publish this, we can share, most significant change stories that they have narrated during interviews. Yeah, thank you so much.
Any other question?
Thank you very much for your nice presentation. I just want to know whether there is any conflict of interest. Those who did the study, are they the ones who did the intervention as well? Because they can have an effect on the successfulness.
So much for this question. That's why we actually contracted Population Council, the independent knowledge management, those who are not involved in any interventions, because we know that IPPF and Renew, they are doing that intervention in the ground. So if we do, that's the conflict of interest. That's why we hired a contracted Population Council from that, individual third eye perspective to evaluate that overall intervention, not by us. Yeah, and we did that, IRB things, and they had also different questions regarding, as you have mentioned. Yeah, thank you.
Any other? I can only entertain one question more. Thank you very much, Dr. Das. Shall we move to the second presentation, Dr. Kanti Hettigode, on exploring the effectiveness of the awareness of video? Any questions to her from the audience?
Hi, this is Anaya
Yes.
from IPPF Saro. So I just wanted to ask you, what was the reaction of the professors from the university that you did your research in about the LGBTQI students, and the acceptance from the professors and the teachers and the professionals?
Yeah, thank you for the question. But in our study, we did not include any lecturers or professors. It's only the undergraduates. But we understood that we need to extend this to our staff as well, our professors professors as well. I won't be surprising if they have very, very poor knowledge and attitude, because when it comes to sexuality and the sexual orientation, we are very, very conventional still. But there are young lecturers, I think, as Doctor said, if we interview the young lecturers and professors, yes, they might have, but we didn't include any of them in the sample.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Just wondering now with these students, what was their, I don't know whether you measured it, home attitudes towards their sexuality? Were they feeling they were stigmatized, etc. at the university because the home environment was also not supportive? Whether you have touched that, I don't know.
For actually, we only had in-depth interviews with the those who identified themselves as homosexual or transgendered. Only 5 of them as a focus group discussion. So I think it might have influenced, but we didn't have any particular question. Have they experienced the same stigma in the external world? But as you said, there can be some kind of influence from that as well, because they perceive that others will like exclude us, that self-exclusion because of that perceived attitude or something. Yes, it's a good question. We need to include such question in future research, I think. Yes, home attitude also might. And some of them actually, they are home people. They don't know that they have that identity. When they are only in the university, they act like and they behave like that. That is also there. When they go home, they try to be the expected role in at home environment.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much for that excellent presentation. Do you have any intervention plan? Because I also have some personnel working with HIV patients, so sometimes experience that they have to exclude from the degree program because of the stigma and discrimination. It's very pathetic. They are really very intelligent people. So are there any, as you are working in the university, any program or any intervention to help such students?
Yes, actually, through our university has a university counseling unit, CAPSU, and it actually entertain and invite any kind of student to come and seek help. And we have few girls who have converted to boys in our hostels. We have actually big dilemma whether to put them in a boys hostel or girls hostel. There are a lot of issues, but university accepting them, and they are students and they are in the hostels and their friends are now supportive. We have very good cases, few cases as role models who identify themselves. They have been brave to go through the surgery, sexual reassignment, and they are living in the university with new identity. We commonly welcome all the students for any mental health thing. Actually, for homosexual, I myself have counseled several couples, boys and girls, who identify them as homosexual. Me being a university counselor, senior lecturer, they are open to come and seek help, and they know we are welcome them, and there's no discrimination. So, but no formal program yet, but we are increasing the awareness using, I'm planning to use the same video and we will translate and we will show it in the orientation program and for others to know about themselves. But for the psychological support, yes, we are actually welcoming them for our services.
I have one question. We are now actually, as a university academic, we are now only recognizing this entity in universities and facing the problems and trying to find solutions. I'm wondering, with your experiences now, we know with the age, the changes are starting to appear from adolescent to youth, and they may go through a phase and then find themselves which category they really are. My dilemma is whether this is as a psychologist, I'm asking whether which one is a temporary kind of a phase or is it a permanent, that assessment and getting the help that is needed for that student to prepare to the environment and to prepare his or her psyche. Are we, as university academics, are we empowered is my question. So from a psychological part, can you enlighten us?
Yes, thank you, madam. Very important question, but I know the answer has to be very lengthy, but to make it short. So when we talk about homosexuality or sexual orientation related things, there can be some temporary trends or learned behaviors or something like that. But we should not forget that there are some portion of this community who are biologically have that tendency, but there are a lot of students who have that trend and they are just exploring and identifying themselves as homosexual. But whenever we encounter such a student, whenever we have the counseling session, so we have some mechanisms to know whether they are truly homosexual or they have learned this behavior. This is the only way they can entertain their life, or this is the only way they can enjoy sex. So we explore that and we kindly tell them that it's too early to actually conclude that you are homosexual, but you can enjoy it with the consent of your partner, but not to conclude. Life is very open than you think. So that's what one. But when it comes to transgender, again, I think even Sri Lanka, when we do the sexually reassigned surgery and all those process, there's a window period for them to decide whether I really want this or not. So for that also, I think 1 year counseling is a must kind of thing for them to decide, is this something because I hate men, that's why I want to be a woman, or is this because I hate women, I have some grudge with my mother, so I don't want to be a woman anymore, something like that. Through our counseling process, there are a lot of psychological theories and explanations about this thing. Actually, in our video, we talk about all those things in a little way. So we accept them, whatever the identity they come with, and then we ask them to be a little bit open. We open the windows and give the scientific things and other options. Some people halfway through decide, yes, this is my psychological issue, this is not something biological. I am happy to be as a woman or man, but I have this certain thing to sort it out, so we can help in that way. But yeah, it's a long process.
Thank you very much. So let's move to the third speaker. That's Mr. Anuziman and from Bangladesh, talking about the Hijra and transgender communities. Any questions to Mr. Anuziman?
Thank you so much for this amazing presentation and study. I have two questions actually. What is the government stance on Hijra violence cases in Bangladesh? I've worked with people from Bangladesh before as well on Hijra culture. I belong to the Hijra culture from Pakistan, so we have connections over there. And the other one is, does the violence from gurus, because the Hijra culture have guru chela system, and does that comes under the gender-based violence cases? And how do you guys treat those cases?
It's very tricky. And
I know.
Yeah,
I have a guru. I am a guru, but it's a reality.
Yeah, that is the reality. Actually, in Bangladesh, the culture, Hijra culture, there is a guru parampara, and they have their own language, they have own customs. So that sometimes, definitely, sometimes other people, other guys, those are under the guru, sometimes they face the difficulties. And some guru also helping to prevent the gender-based violence as well. So that it's a mixed and it is a complex situation actually.
Sorry, just clarifying. Just do you guys treat the violence cases from the gurus? I am a Hijra, I can say that. And they cannot.
Yeah, sometimes,
So do you guys treat the cases or just ignore them or give it to them to solve these cases? Sorry, I know this is a tricky question. But.
Very important question. Yeah, as a community-based organization, we also face, significant level of problem. I mean, pressurized by the gurus as well. So in some critical cases, what we do, we follow the referral mechanism if there is. So we just we do have referral pathways, and with some friendly organization, those who are very expert on legal issues as well as in human rights issues. So we try to resolve it rather than intervening us through them. So through the referral mechanism we do. Yes, you are right. There are cases between gurus and chelas, but how dominated the chelas are by the gurus. So sometimes they also fear to speak about. So yeah, we have to follow that mechanism in terms of resolve that.
Thank you so much.
One question I want to ask, where are you regarding the act you talk about that you all are in the process of developing the law part about the rights of the people and the act regarding, so are you in the process or have you completed, gone up to the parliament, or What is that?
Actually, thank you so much. This is a very good question. Actually, the Transgender Act, it's the process, under the process, not in the parliament. And Social Ministry of Social Welfare Department of Bangladesh initiated to this kind of law, for formulating this kind of law and consultation with different stakeholders as well as the community people, but still is in the process.
Thank you, because in our country also we started an act and it was thrown out when it went to the parliament. So all of us are in somewhat a similar boat, I think.
So they can go through the gender change process that is accepted by the Minister of Health, and also they can change their identity also. That is legally.
At least this the health sector in our country, we can assure we are much better. But when it comes to the legal sphere, there is a lot of things that need change. Any more questions, or shall we move to the other person, because almost we are closing to the time. And next one is from to Miss Sumatipala, Chanika Dilhani. That's on protective factors for intimate partner violence during COVID-19 pandemic. Any questions to Miss Dilhani from the audience? Anybody? Everybody wants to go? Okay, I have one question.
Yes.
What we saw, I'm a forensic medical person, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the type of violence, severity of violence was increased and the complexities have increased, and solving and bringing help is much more difficult.
Yes.
So, with your findings, if we are to address now 2024, COVID has gone, but how to put your findings to the future?
Very good question. Actually, my concern is in Sri Lanka during the COVID-19 pandemic period, there are a number of frontline workers. But basically looking at the prevention of COVID-19 pandemic and the virus prevention and so on. But a little bit less concern about the psychological support and so on. So if we can include some psychologists as well as social work into this mechanism and accepting them as a frontline workers and working collaboratively, I think it would be more effective, and identify risk factors and act before what has happened is the most important thing, because we can still implement number of activities to increase the communication between partners as well as how we can improve their skills. For example, I can say we can give some small pre-counseling session before they are going to marry. So such components, simply we can implement number of changes in Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much. So I'm rushing to the next author, that's Niranjala Sumatipala, about the health-seeking behaviors from facing sexual violence by intimate partner violence in Sri Lanka. And she presented from the Health 2019 National Health Women's Wellbeing Survey. Any questions to Ms. Sumatipala?
Thank you for bringing up that statistic. Is there any possibility for you to do like follow-up studies with these people? Can you locate them? Because maybe you haven't got the consent from the people to get their data, but it's worthwhile, like, when people fill the questionnaires and when these survey people fill the questionnaires, there may be a lot of bias, pro and against. But if we can do some like in-depth, like something follow-up studies with those statistics will be very useful. Actually, when it comes to help-seeking behavior, we need to promote it. Yes, any idea to follow it up?
Yes, thank you. Very interesting idea. Actually, this is study based on secondary data. So we cannot follow up these people, these respondents. But in future, we can improve this research, and we can, especially they are respond the questions in questionnaire. Sometimes they didn't tell truth because of this. In this secondary data, we see they refuse answer. They don't give some questions. They don't give answers. So very interesting idea. And in future research, we will consider that, and we will do in future this kind of research. Thank you so much.
One quick question that actually reflections, not the questions. As you have used that descriptive statistics where you have, mentioned all those. So if you can run a kind of, multivariate, regression kind of thing, so that you can get that all the predictors or the determinants, what are actually affecting, and increasing this thing. So if in future, if you would like to do that, would be helpful.
Yes, thank you. And in this situation, the problem is the respondent sample size is 148. Sample size is too small. In that case, we cannot do some, as you mentioned, regression analysis and multiple logistic analysis. That's why we limited to chi-square statistics. But in future, we will consider that and we will do some more statistical analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll quickly go to the last person. That's Dr. Nalaka Kulatunga. And as an academic, this is the challenge. So we know when I came to medical college, we were never taught child abuse, gender-based violence. And in 2012, somewhere through the SLMA, all the curriculars were looked at and we included a gender topic to that. But still, from your study, we understand the intern doctors. We are still not even curriculum level, we are not addressing. It's something which you brought. Other than through the curriculum, any bright ideas for change this difference from your research?
Thank you, madam. Actually, the second part of the study, we inquired what they think, why they don't have this knowledge and why they have different attitudes. So most of the doctors who responded was that their first choice was they were never taught about this one, as madam told. And also we asked what are the possible ways they prefer. So again, the undergraduate was their first choice. But there are other options as well. Informal education as well as sensitizing the community, because doctors are also the product of a community. So community, if they don't have this knowledge or this sensitivity, this empathy, so it's difficult to expect that from the doctors as well. So I think it's should come from the young age, not young age, as kids also. And so there is a informal education, there's a large part we have to do. Informal education can be part from media, part from our day-to-day conversations, any opportunity. So there is a wide variations of opportunities we can use, but hardly I think we are using that one. Medical curriculum, yes, of course, most of the Western countries, they have incorporated, but they have also started to incorporate it after 2000, 2010, right? So we are not that far behind, but we have to start that one also.
Any other question from the audience?
Thank you so much. I find it really, really important, presentation, and thanks for the initiative. Good findings as well that can be replicated in other part of that, region. My question is, it's sort of online based interviews and information you have gathered. So what was the mechanism in terms of, sort of disseminating the information or questionnaire to the potential respondent?
In Sri Lanka, this is done on the doctors who are employed by the Ministry of Health. So Ministry of Health has a database. So they are having a database, and what we requested was our sample size is 384. So we asked them to randomly select 384, send the questionnaire we have prepared. So it's a Google form we have disseminated. As you see, the response rate was quite modest compared to the other two studies done in Sri Lanka. One is done on the doctors, but it was not an online one, it was on site. It was disseminated, and we specifically mentioned we don't collect their personal data, it's anonymous data collection. So that's how we disseminated the questionnaire to the sample.
It looks like no other questions. So shall we wrap up the session? And thank you for the active participation. All of you all were wonderful. And now we are heading for the awarding certificates.
Thank you, sir, madam, and the presenters for the valuable presentations. Now it's time for the award of certification. Dr. Lakshman Senanayaka left as he has to attend to another session. So I would like to invite Professor Anuruddhi Edirisinghe to the stage to award the certificates. I call upon Dr. Arpita Das to come and collect your certificate. Dr. Kanthi Hettigoda, this invitation is to you to come and collect your certificate. Mr. A.K.M. Anisuzaman, please come and collect your certificate. I call upon Ms. Chanika Dilhani to come and collect the certificate. Ms. Neranjala Sumatipala, please come and collect your certificate. Dr. Nalaka Kulatunga, come and collect your certificate. Thank you, madam. So we have reached the closure of the session. Thank you again, everyone.